Okay, if you can make your way over here, we're going to start just as soon as everybody takes a seat. So we normally have opening remarks by somebody from CPS Energy, and Rudy is still at City Council, so he's going to try to make it back for closing remarks. And we have a lot to cover, so we're just going to kind of dive in today and get started. Those of you who are online, we have the raising hand rule still in effect, and Ann is watching her computer and will let me know when you want to chime in, and I'll try to also ask you if you guys have any comments on what we're talking about. Corey is going to once again present an overview of the rate request and the investments that need to be made, and then Deanna is going to talk about the community outreach portions of the rate request package, and that'll take about 20-25 minutes. And then, like we've done in the previous two meetings, we'll get your sort of overall general reactions to the deck, and then we'll kind of go slide by slide and try to understand what you didn't understand, what resonated, what makes sense, what other questions you might have. And then we have there's a flyer by each of y'all's desks. And Ann, did the people online get the flyer as part of the package? Okay, Anna's, look for your email, those of you who are online, and Anna's going to send you a copy of the one-page flyer. That is a proposed layout and content for something that will be used in the community outreach efforts, so we'll look at that. And there's also been a website developed, and we'll briefly look at that and get your reaction to that. So with that, we're going to get started, and Corey, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mary, appreciate it. And good evening, everybody. As Mary mentioned, Rudy is still over at City Council. Deanna and I were over with him, and he released us to come over here, and he'll be heading over shortly, and we'll catch up with us then. So we also want to extend our appreciation for being flexible on your meeting times. We know we moved this on y'all, so I want to acknowledge that and thank you guys and appreciate your patience with that. So I'll dive in, and then I'll hand it off to Deanna midway through. But at the last meeting, I gave a little bit of an overview on the process of how we come to a determination of whether there's a need for a rate request. And so, to that point, our teams have been working over the last several months on a comprehensive review of our various models, sales forecasts, financing plans, affordability plans, and things of that nature in order to come to you today with our initial recommendation. So that'll be kind of the first part of this conversation with myself. And then we do know that the committee has, and the community has talked a lot about affordability and what we're doing for our customers. And Deanna will take the second half and talk through some of those suggestions and then obviously take input. So I kind of outlined, what's on the agenda today, and we'll step through that. But on this slide, part of the review, as we think through it, it makes sense to take a look at where we are today. So we took into consideration our current year-to-date financial position, and that's your launching point. Every quarter, I talk to our board of trustees of kind of where we're at year to date. And as part of the review process that we went through, it was to give us data that's as fresh as possible. And for us, that's data as of the end of September of this year. Part of the headlines and conversations that you may have seen that comes up at City Council has been how we are doing and how the city has been doing relative to our revenues. And so the short commentary is our wholesale revenues that have made headlines have done really well this summer. And just as a refresher, wholesale revenue is sales that we make that are to the state of Texas and are not for our local customers. And this only occurs in the event where CPS Energy has enough power for our community and then has extra power. And that is when we have an opportunity to sell back to the state. So this year, this summer performance mainly, we saw about an additional $130 million dollars in revenue, net of city payment, net of fuel, and that's what's on this slide. And we share this because this conversation has come up at the city as well because they've got an additional CPS, additional city payment as well. We want to address kind of our early thinking on this as we go into the need for our rate request. These are one-time dollars, meaning that you can't count on them, you can't rely on them. As an example, last year, this number was negative 30 relative to our budget. So we came in $30 million under. No one made, we didn't have a conversation about that, but for context, the last 3 years, we've come in under budget. Nonetheless, we want to be prudent in how we spend these dollars, and we're focusing on using these dollars for additional investment into our plants and to our system, which, as you know, was stressed incredibly hard this summer, which we all lived through. You told us that you want some more protection from from the weather, and part of this, in our recommendation, is to apply that to customer assistance in some form or fashion. Whether it be in a contribution to REAP, our residential assistance program, or whether it be some other kind of bill protection. There's also an element that's new for us. That's a regulatory requirement. Yes, ma'am. Mary, what do you recommend?
Let's wait till let's go through it all, and then we'll address questions slide by slide. Thanks. I think is there a sheet that for their questions? No? Okay. Just jot it down maybe on the slide deck, if you will. Thanks so much.
So generally speaking, to be transparent and with the community, given given the consideration of how we've done this year and the application of some of those funds for the things that we need, our recommendation has been revised down from what we had flashed 2 years ago, down to 4.25. That's affected by the collective nature of the comprehensive review that I spoke about, consideration of our current financial position this year, which has led to this recommendation being lower. The benefits of this request are much the same that we've spoken about before. It enables the pursuit of Vision 2027 that Rudy has talked about with our Board of Trustees. It does support the enterprise IT initiatives that we must do. And it supports the generation plan that our Board of Trustees voted on earlier this year as part of the public review process. So as with any rate request, of course, this recommendation is subject to our public process. It's subject to the community input that we're seeking today and over the coming month, and also the ongoing assessment of our financial position or performance for the balance of this year. I'll go back real quick. The last point I'd make on that is, what does it equate to? The recommended rate increase is for $85 million. That's down from our estimate that I spoke about at the first meeting, which was 100 to 120. $85 million. I gave the context last time. That's on the size of a $3.5 million budget, so it's a large number, but contextually, it's around 2.5% of a total budget. The committee had asked, in previous meetings, and David, we talked a little bit offline too, what are those dollars going for? Where is the investment? So we want to be transparent and give a little bit more detail on what those items are. So on this slide, I will spend a little bit of time just kind of going left to right here on the types of projects where this additional revenue would go towards. Yes, that would be annual recurring additional revenue. Yeah. So it's not just for 1 year. So, we've talked about how the community has asked for reliable power, has asked for resilient power that can bounce back quickly. And so, looking at the left there, investments in that infrastructure allow us to keep the lights on longer and restore your power quicker. I hit that too fast. And what you see on the screen there are the types of investments that allow us to do that. the board talked about our generation plans, so the retirement of our early retirement of our coal plant Spruce 1, and the conversion of Spruce 2 is part of that. And also, all the things that we talked about at meeting 1 in terms of additional plant maintenance, additional tree trimming, and other infrastructure and technology that really helps us isolate outages for our customers. And that's the big thing, is making sure we're responsive to keeping the lights on for folks. And when they are out, they're not out for too long. The other part on here, which is the last bullet that I'll point out, I mean, there's no shying away from the fact that inflation is real. And I know that's part of the argument that everything around us has gone up. But CPS Energy is not immune. Everything around us has gone up. So, the cost of providing the services to our customers, the cost of procuring the materials to do the regular work that you expect us to do to keep the lights on has gone up, and it's gone up significantly. And it's gone up a lot more than the 4.25% that we're asking for. And we've been able to manage through a lot of those 40, 50%, price increases of transformers as an example. The other element is around, folks wanting to be able to have more control over how they use their power, how they see their power, how they pay for their power, the types of rates that they can select from. And we've talked about this before, that element of technology and that investment is critical. And that's what that second bucket there represents. The other thing that we can't forget is CPS Energy is critical infrastructure. There's no way around that. And as critical infrastructure, we have seen increased security threats and risks, both physical and cyber. And that continues to be of utmost importance, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because there is a level of regulation and oversight as well associated with those activities and that spend. We've talked about this before. We are a growing community, and there are benefits of a growing community. And it also means that the system that supports a growing community, needs investment to keep up. And put a little bit of things in context. We all benefit from a generation portfolio that has enough power for our entire community. We all benefit from a distribution grid that has the upgrades that it needs to manage the flow of power across our lines in a stable and reliable way. And we all benefit from a customer service team that has the resources to address customer needs, put issues out and things like that. So as we grow, for example, the team that Deanna uses to answer the phones must go with that in order to maintain those service levels that, as a community, we would want to have. So there is a element of investment associated with supporting our customers and businesses broadly across the system. And that last bucket there is people. And Rudy's talked a lot about that. I've talked a lot about that. We've all talked about that. It takes people to get the work of utility done. You see your friends, your families, they're employees of CPS Energy. They're working around town. You're seeing them out in storms. And as we grow, those are the folks, from San Antonio and the surrounding communities that we're hiring. And those are the folks that we need to skill up. We can't just hire someone, on day one and they're ready to be a troubleman or get up in lines. It takes years to go through the pipeline. And as we have a growing community, not only do we have folks that we would add to our workforce, but we also have an aging workforce that's eligible or near eligible for retirement. In the next 3 to 5 years, you're looking at a lot of those folks going out. So as we bring in the pipeline of folks early on, there's an element of time that also allows them to be trained and cross-trained so that they can be kind of the next generation of worker for San Antonio and the surrounding area. So I do know I spent a lot of time on that slide. There's probably too much detail for some and not enough for others. Try to walk that fine line. But we'll spend the next month and a half or so out in the community at different events and with council to lay out different areas. But that's the Cliff Notes version of kind of where the incremental dollars of spend would go towards and the value that they're providing, to our customers. So in terms of what this means to you, what this means to your businesses, I'll try to address that in the next couple of slides in terms of impact. But I do want to stress something on these next few slides. These are bill impacts on customers that are not on any type of customer assistance program. As I mentioned, Deanna will address those. we have many programs for folks to see some help. But what you see from here is the total bill impact's around 445 for a residential customer, small commercial about 1780. That's sub 3% from a total bill impact. And in the context of the inflationary environment that we've been in, going up over the last 2 or 3 years, while this still is a number greater than zero, it is still a number that's significantly below the rest of the country, city, and nation. And we've done our best to try and mute that impact as best we can, even for those of folks who are not on any programs, which is what this represents. We were also asked about bill impacts for all the customer groups. So between the last slide and this slide, we're showing the different customer commercial groups here. All the same, you can see the approximate total bill impact for customers is right around that 3% range. So, all in all, still kind of a brief summary, but what I do want to do is I think it's a nice segue for Deanna to talk about what it is we have out to offer our customers to help mitigate, impacts of this for those that qualify.
Thank you, Corey. I do want to say thank you again for everybody for working with us and being able to accommodate the schedule. That way we could get the information to you as most in depth as possible. You're the first group that we're talking to this about the number and how we're looking at things. So as Corey mentioned, I will be talking about the customer assistance and community outreach. And, I just want to start by saying, in San Antonio, we're so proud of the sense of community that we have, right? We come together and help those in need. And making lives better for our residents and our customers matters to us just as much as it matters to you. And we are all committed at CPS Energy to do our part to help support the equity solution for our customers. And so you asked us to make sure that we understand who in the community is going to be the most impacted by the necessary investments that we need to support our community and to keep the lights on. And I'm proud to say that for the first time ever, we actually know the energy burden, which is the percent of the customer's total income, it's the total income divided by their energy bill. And we can focus on those customers that are most affected by energy burden. So because of that, because we've been able to do some manual things with the data while we're going through the technology changes, what we're able to do is expand our existing affordability discount program. And that way we can include those to enroll with those that have a severe energy burden. And not only are we going to be able to expand the enrollment, but we're also going to be able to to raise the rate. And so you'll see that it will increase the discount to $18.36 per month for those customers that we are able to enroll in ADP. And then as part of this expansion, what that means to the average person, a lot of people are always like, well, who pays for that? That is part of what the average residential and commercial customer pays for. But this will only increase the residential customer's bill by their contribution by 23 cents. And that means a total of 83 cents on average per month for our residential customers is what's used to fund ADP in the community. And again, that's one thing we consistently hear from our customers, that they're willing to support other customers that are in need. So it's going to be a little under $1 that it costs to do that, but we think that it's worth it. And at the same time, we know that there are many customers that just want to know how it's going to impact them. And Brenda, you and I have talked about this a lot. And at the end of the day, customers are like, yeah, that's great. We understand what you need and that things are going up for all of us. And Peter and I were just talking about this right before. But at the end of the day, customers just want to know, but how's it, one, going to impact me directly? And two, how can you help me with products and services? And so we do have our pamphlets that we hand out at our walk-in centers, at all of our fairs that talk about the different programs that we offer at CPS Energy. And, we try to talk to customers, connect them with the right products and services, but then also the right partners in our bundled care. So Eric at the food bank and Adrian developing that relationship with Workforce Solutions, all the opportunities that we have to help a customer and their household, we will absolutely find. And at the same time, find what other resources there are available. So we do have these scheduled events so far, and there's one in each district, but we know that not everybody will come out to a community fair. So we also have been doing block walking, and that means that we go to each district and identify those customers that have the highest need. We can't don't have enough people to go to knock on every customer's doors, but we have been going since for the last 2 years, block walking, and you'll see that we're continuing each district. And it's not only our residential customers that have needs. We know that our large commercial and industrial customers have questions. So we'll have a webinar and have some meetings scheduled for our commercial customers. We'll also look at, we have an energy to business team that reaches out to our small, medium business. So we have an event at Endeavors coming up. And so we'll make sure that we include what the impact for our small, medium businesses will be seeing as a result of the rate increase, and ways to help get them more access to more resources as well. Additionally, we have taken lots of feedback and tried to develop a one-pager. So if we had to synthesize it down into one page that we will mail out to each customer, right? So we've had lots of feedback, not just from this group, but from other customers. We also have lots of surveys that go out, and what phrases resonate with customers. And it's in English and in Spanish. The idea is that this will go out to every customer based on their preference. So if we have about 700,000 customers that we have enrolled online, the majority of them want to receive all of their information via email. But if a customer says that they want it via paper, then they will receive a paper copy. So we'll make sure that this gets mailed out based on a customer's preference. And then we also have a website, as Mary mentioned, that we'll be going through for whenever we have our community fairs, whenever we meet with a customer. If a customer comes to our walk-in center, they call us on the phone, we'll talk to them about the rate increase. We'll walk them through and help them see the same information. In the event that they don't have access, we'll also have a rate calculator, so we can get to let's figure out, we know what your average usage is. Let's figure out what the impact's going to be to you, and then what other programs we can help support you with. So that is a very, very high level, but I want to say, if there is some place you want us to be at, some place that you think that is a good place for us to show up, talk to Eric and Adrian before. Adrian's going to send us some of his locations so that we can go figure out where to go, and Eric, whatever we can do there at the food bank. We will go to the community and be wherever you ask us to be, sharing this information, connecting with customers, and finding as many ways as we can to help provide solutions, and not only just explain the rate case, but also what we can do to help our customers. It's been since 2022 that we talked about our last rate case. And since then, we've been talking about this multi-year journey that requires investments in our infrastructure for reliability and resiliency. Customers want power to stay on, and when it goes off, they want it to get back as soon as possible. And we have to it costs something to do that. We have to find a way to invest in our system, not just for the new customers coming here, but for the existing customers coming here. And as Troy said, everything's costing more. We have a new generation plan. We need to replace our decades-old technology. And ultimately, we also have to invest in the people that proudly work here. We have over 3,000 employees. They're your friends, they're your family members, right? And some of them are about to retire, and we've got to figure out a way to help support them and get a succession plan. And then we've got others that are just entering into the market, the job market, and we've got to skill them up to understand a utility that has decades-old technology, but also wants to move us into the future. So that's how we're going to continue to have those conversations. It's all of our teams getting out into the community, going wherever we can to help engage and walk through that. And so with that, I know, Mary, you're going to take us through slide by slide, and then all of the pages as well as the website. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. At the end of this session, just as we've done with the previous sessions, Anna's going to send you out a survey. I think it will be sent to you Friday morning, and we're just asking for you to fill that out by end of day Tuesday. That's something that will be shared with City Council, and so we'd really appreciate if we got 100% participation on that and moving forward. I was remiss when we started the meeting, because I'm used to somebody giving opening remarks, that I forgot the safety message and the prayer. So if Jose would come up and do that now, we'll sort of do it a little bit out of order. Thanks so much.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'll review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exit to exit outside. These glass doors here to the west behind us, and verbally alert others. We'll move to the main parking lot in front of the building behind me, which is the direction behind me, or to the AT&T parking lot across the Riverwalk here at the McCullough-Brooklyn Bridges. Our security team will be watching and will notify the appropriate emergency services. Lastly, we'll also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to ensure that we are prepared. At this point, I'd ask that you join me for the invocation. We thank you for the many blessings you've freely given to each of us, and we ask for your presence to guide this meeting of the Community Input Working Group. Provide them with the knowledge, compassion, and the wise counsel needed as they discuss the business matters on the agenda today. Help us all to remember that we are stewards acting on behalf of our customers, and provide us with the grace to serve all people well. And we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Jose. Just a reminder too, as we're going through that, you need to speak in a microphone so we get it as part of the recording. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. And just, let's just talk in general about the presentation overall, your overall impressions in terms of, is it what you were expecting? Is it too much information, not enough information, simple enough for the common working family to understand? Just general thoughts. Who'd like to start that discussion? Anybody online have any thoughts about that? General reaction to the presentation? Miriam, Stephanie, Wayne?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Deanna, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out the relationship with the numbers on page 3 with the number on page 5. So on page 3, we talk about the preliminary 2024 results, 130 million, and you break it down into plant investment and additional customer assistance. So what is the relationship between that number on page 3 and the number on page 5? Because it might trigger off my next question, but I don't want to guess.
Thank
Hey,
you,
this is
Patrick.
Corey. Oh, sorry, yeah. So I think the first one on slide 3 was really just to address some of the headline conversations around, hey, how's your current performance doing year to date? And very simply was trying to identify that the nature of those headlines and the nature of that type of revenue is one time and associated with a particular element of our business, and that we were going to use those prudently in kind of a one-time fashion. That is separate and apart and different from the long-term continual investments that we need as part of a base rate increase, which is what's reflected on slide 5. So it was more to just kind of address kind of the current headlines and discussions that we've heard. And then this slide differentiates kind of the long-term perpetual annual need of those types of investments. Hopefully that helps, Patrick.
Corey, I think so. I think what I didn't want to do is make a conclusion that you need 130 million, but you're only asking for 85 million.
No, I think the types of additional investment or use for these dollars on slide 3 would be in the context of this year. And those types of investments will be different than on slide 5. Because those dollars, that 85 million, and David asked this, that's a recurring revenue source to help fund these things, not just next year, but in perpetuity, right? So again, this is good feedback too, to make sure we distinguish, these items.
So
And
can
Corey,
I follow up just on that real quick? And then we'll go
Which
back to
slide?
Patrick.
This
Just-
one?
So Corey, can you just
I
explain?
don't know that your mic's on. Yeah, maybe just talk closer to it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay. So the 130 million, if you had not had that, Corey, this year, would this rate request look different?
I think it's fair to say that it would look a little different because those additional funds enabled us to, as part of the collective review, right? Help push down some of that request, or lets us borrow less, right? So directly or indirectly.
So you're in better financial position today because of the 130 million. That changes how much you have to ask for in this rate request.
It's absolutely a factor, and that's in part why we waited and pushed
So
today.
that may be something that has to be bridged. I think that's what Patrick's asking.
Got it.
is,
yes.
What's the
Yes.
relation between those?
Okay.
And,
While
and
we're
then one,
on-
and one last part about that, and then I'm done with that, with these two pieces of information. But, and I understand the infrastructure, the 26 million, and when you read what is involved in that, I know that nothing is cheap these days. In order to, to look at reliability and resiliency, it's a big cost. And I know you had to estimate these numbers in some fashion. And I guess, but what I want to make sure is that when you look at the first piece of information you gave us in meeting 1, we had the gap from 1992 to 2006, 14 years without a price increase. And then you raised it to 3.5. Then we had another gap between 2015 and 2023, which was 8 years. So I'm looking at, I guess the question of concern is how, when you're running a business and you have these gaps, is how in the world, typically you don't catch up. It's almost impossible. And you almost have to take the deep dive that your request for the rate increase has to be predicated that you are doing your due diligence, not going overboard, but getting it right. Because this increase is important, as you've demonstrated in these examples, the technology, the growth, and the people. So the point is, you can't, because of the gaps and price increases, and then how do you catch up? As you know, it's almost impossible. And then when you do it, it upsets everybody because you're trying to catch up. And so what I just want to make sure from the manufacturing community, the business categories of, the long-term efficiency of having energy and reliable energy, is this an adequate amount that the public and this group needs to understand? Are you actually meeting the needs or not? Or are you cutting yourself short? That's my bottom line question.
Yeah, I think we've said all along, and Rudy's committed to this, this path forward that we have in front of us is about being honest and transparent with the community and meeting our needs. So to that point, I would say that last time when we came to speak to you 2 years ago, it was about meeting our needs. And same is true this year, Patrick. This is about meeting our needs. And the transparency part of it, it comes from saying we're going to have to continually make these routine investments over the next decade, because what you're pointing out is you can't do both. You can't make large investments without having a corresponding increase in resources, without kind of getting in a pickle. And we don't want to get in that place. So hopefully that helps, Patrick.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question. Yes, Brenda, you had a question about
Yes.
slide number 3, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a Deanna question or not, but what does additional customer assistance mean? Does that mean you're going to create more programs? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think there's still some detail yet to be played out, but one of the big things that we think is a pretty good one is an additional contribution to the REAP program, which is the Residential Electric Assistance Program. Right now, that balance has $13 million in it, and so we could increase that significantly and help out folks. So that'd be a good example.
Yes.
So I had a question. If I'm
Can you
jump-
talk closer to the mic, please?
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
So I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead, but small commercial, how is that stratified? What exactly does small commercial mean?
Let's just wait to get to that one
Okay.
second. I just want to finish the discussion about this slide.
Okay.
What did you guys think of this slide? What, do you have questions about it? Does it make sense? Does the conversation that's ensued since we've put it up? Yes. Oh. Adrian?
So I think I understand the slide and the comparison to the subsequent slides. My question is in regards to that's what the performance is for FY 2024. If the performance for future years is better than what you anticipate, how does that affect the rate and the investments that you need to make into infrastructure and the items that you identified?
I mean, I think that's the main goal of kind of redoing a forecast and refreshing that. So to the extent, 2 years down the road, performance is different one way or the other. If it's beneficial, then it'll influence, whatever ask in a positive manner, or vice versa, right? We were fortunate this time, right? It trended in the right direction. We're able to pull it down. But if you're any business owner, right? I mean, you're constantly reforecasting and reforecasting. And same with us. And in a business that's very weather dependent like we are, there's even more uncertainty and more volatility around that. So it's hard to pin it down, but yeah, anything that turns out better than forecast will have a dampening effect on the future requests.
Dr. Adelita?
What does ERCOT collateral requirement mean?
Yeah, that's the short answer is a regulatory issue. It's a new regulation at ERCOT, which is the kind of the air traffic controller of the
Right.
state of Texas, right? Yeah, they have a certain requirement now that requires entities to participate in a particular market to post collateral. And so that's basically monies that we need to send over there and just sit there. And it's
And
basically taking away working capital from us.
So that customer assistance money, REAP, some of that may be utilized to go to ERCOT.
No, it would be kind of that bucket is both. So some would go over to REAP and some would go over to ERCOT. But it benefits the customer because by putting the money over to ERCOT, it lets us to participate in a market that's less volatile, which gives better price certainty for our customers, as opposed to making us participate in a different market that's more volatile without to get into complications. So I think we all benefit from that, and that was kind of the rationale there.
Okay. But it's not taking money from the REAP that would be.
No, ma'am.
Stephanie, did you have something to add?
Yes, I just have a general question. So who has seen these numbers? So the CPS board has seen them. Has anyone else? Are we first eyes on it today? Just a general question.
Yeah, the city staff has seen these as well. We've spent a number of months working with them. But in terms of publicly having a conversation, the first time we posted this was last night on our website, and now we're having the conversation here today. Obviously, our board of trustees are being briefed continuously, but hopefully that answered your question.
Yes. I just didn't know if we were the first ones to see this, but you're saying it was made public technically last night.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Yes, Eric?
Yeah, just on this slide, just to make sure I'm comprehending. So the net, this is a net revenue from wholesale energy sold. The 130 million is net.
Correct.
Ideally, if we would have sold this to CPS customers, your revenue would have been larger.
I'm not sure I would think of it in that manner. Our customers couldn't buy any more from us.
Right.
They were filled up, and you only pay what's on your bill, right? We just charge you for that. Because there's leftover, now we go to a different market the state and we send it over there. So it's based on the price that ERCOT, the market is setting. So it could be $20, $5,000. It happened to be that pricing was really high. And so we were able, the volume of power times these really high prices manifested in, a number like that.
And does that tend to be higher than what ratepayers are paying or less?
It could, I mean, in this instance, yes, because it's during peak times. And if the situation was flipped and we were buying off the market to serve our customers, that would be very expensive. And that's not the position we want to be in, because that creates price volatility. It doesn't protect your customers and things of that nature.
Thank you for explaining that. Thank you.
Yes,
I do.
AR.
I do have a question about this slide, or just a comment, really. I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to know how they're going to be impacted directly.
Mhm.
And I think if there was another tier that showed how the 70 and $60 million provided net benefit to the end user, even if, the $60 million, I understand paying down your debt helps the financial position, which helps the credit rating, either maintain it or go higher. So I think incorporating that in there lets people know what that additional dollars is going to and how that provides sustainability instead of just plant investment.
Yeah, good feedback. I actually got that earlier today too on this slide. So I think a different level of explanation and depth would be helpful. So, and we can tie it back exactly, JR, to that.
And when you're saying net benefit, just so we make sure we understand, what kind of things are you hoping to see?
Well, I mean, I
Detail.
think additional plant investment's good, but what does that mean? So does that mean that you're going to invest in newer technology that's going to last longer? Or are you going to invest in tree trimming so I don't have limbs fall on my lines that are going to cause problems? And so I think being able to show people, I might not be getting the money myself, but where is it going? And it comes back in dividends, then I feel better knowing that.
Okay.
And yes to both, right? Those are two perfect examples of more trees being trimmed in your neighborhood, catching up on some of that. 100% good example. You ran your car, which is our power plants, much harder this summer. I got to take it in for an oil change sooner. So I got to do some additional maintenance and maybe some repairs on it, things like that. So good feedback and good examples.
And I guess from my perspective, I have confidence in leadership. And so this is for the people that are still a little hesitant. And so I think that puts it out there so that it's in their face and they know.
Miriam?
This is
Hi, and I apologize. I can't seem to find the raise hand button. I'm not sure if that's disabled on this particular WebEx format. But anyway, the only comment I would make on this is I understand, since we've had this whole discussion, what's on this slide, but I think presented without that explanation, it might be confusing to people who don't know what ERCOT is, who don't know what non-fuel wholesale is. I would just say, as much as you can to simplify to the general public when they don't have that background, it'll make it a little bit less confusing. And I think some of the other slides in the one pager are written in a little bit more plain language. So that's my only comment.
Okay. Thank you. Wayne, did you want to
yeah,
add something?
yes, I apologize. I don't know how to do the raise hand either. I always like to see trends, and this is a great snapshot in time, but I like to see, a few years back and projections and stuff. It just kind of right now, it just hits me, boom. This is where we are in 2024. But is this is better? I think I've heard a little bit about in the past, but I don't see that. So is this better information now than it was in 2023? We talked about the increases with costs and everything, but to me, that doesn't show that. And so to me, it's always great to have a trend so I can kind of walk along. You can lead me along and say, okay, Wayne, see, this is why we need this additional amount because this is where we're going. So, but other than that, I think it's good.
So maybe show the volatility of it is what you're saying?
Well, what was the final in 2023 as compared to where we are in 2024?
Yeah, we can do that. I think trends is a really good idea,
Yeah.
not just for wholesale revenue here, but also
Yeah.
for the cost elements. So really good suggestion. And, just for context on this, this particular slide, if I was to tell you the context, the last 3 years, it was negative, right? We came in below forecast, which is why no one ever talked about it because it was below forecast. But a great suggestion. Thank you, Wayne.
Yes,
I'm having to trick this thing. It's not working exactly right. So excuse me if it looks like I'm jumping around the slides. Okay, let's go on to this next slide, which sort of breaks down the 85 million by buckets. Yes,
So,
Brenda?
Deanna, is this already a done deal? It's printed, it's going to go out to our customers?
Yes,
Okay.
we're going to talk about that at the end.
Okay, so
yeah.
with the information, you have on page 5, some of it, of course, was translated into this. So if I were you, I would highlight the 20-year-old system that you all have, because I think it's important to let your customers know it's a must. We don't have a choice. We must update this system. And also, you included in what you gave to us about enhanced cyber and physical security. I think you need to highlight that too. You know, we continue to get notifications from all kinds of companies that our information has been breached, and your information may have already been seen by someone else that shouldn't have. That's important, I think, to the everyday customer, that we have confidence that this hopefully is not going to happen with CPS.
Okay.
Okay.
And when we get to the flyer at the end, let's make sure that we note that
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So on this slide, let's just take infrastructure, reliability, and resiliency, and the things listed here. In general, one of the things that Corey said is some people are going to think this is too much information. Some people are going to think it's not enough. Just some feedback on that from you guys in terms of did CPS Energy get the right balance there, or what are your thoughts? David?
So my comment, or I guess question on the first part of that, the infrastructure. One thing, it kind of goes with, I think, how this should be talked about is the power generation plan that was approved this year is costing money. And how much is that? How much is that? That's that first bullet.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the 26 million is that? Because that's what the community has asked CPS to do. And so these are the funds that are needed to support that decision from the community.
So do you want that deep for every big
No, I'm
bullet
not saying it has, I don't think you add that to this. I have a question on how much that is, but then I think it needs to be emphasized that this is what we were asked to do as an organization because of community input, and this is how much it costs.
Okay. So is it a talking point as opposed to, power generation plan, parentheses, 13
Yeah,
of the 26
it's a
million?
talking point.
Okay. All right.
this is Wayne. I'm sorry, I
Yes.
can't raise my hand. Just on the part about the coal plant retirement and the gas plant conversions, I thought those two went hand in hand. I thought we were shutting down coal plants and retrofitting those coal plants for gas conversion. And if I could be wrong on that, but the way I see it now, it looked like those are two separate entities.
Okay. Somebody else had their hand raised. Yes, Dee Dee.
On the first bullet point, generation plan to include new generation technologies where it has coal plant retirement and gas plant conversions. Those aren't new technologies. If I were coming into this, I'd want to know what those other technologies are, because coal and gas aren't new.
What the new technologies are?
Right.
Okay. Do you want to speak to that, Corey, or do you just want to note that they?
I was giving Benny the mic without his information.
I'm sorry, so the question was around our annual spend?
No, what the new generation technologies are.
Oh, sorry. So what we're looking at today is small modular nuclear and geothermal as two potential opportunities to provide dispatchable baseload level capacity, new generation. We're also starting to look at long duration energy storage. There's a couple of technologies out there that look pretty promising, including a geothermal option that we may have the capability to do here locally. We're starting to dig into that now.
Does that help, Dee Dee? That didn't sound very convincing. If it didn't, now's the time to say it. That's fine. Okay. Yes.
So I like that some of these categories have some real kind of good little data points. Like, for example, on the last one, with people, 30% of the team members are retiring.
Uh-huh.
In the other data points, I would suggest that we put data points in the other categories as well to be able to ensure that people get a context about what this means. So like in the infrastructure reliability and resilience, what does that mean in terms of, I mean, if you look at deferred maintenance, right? And what, let's say it's $100 million, it's $26 million that is going towards deferred maintenance or whatever it may be. I'm just using that as an example. Because I think it could articulate better, for example, even under growth, what that means in terms of the number of customers and that are actually anticipated to grow, right?
Okay. So a little more detail
Just simple little
to give
data.
context.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Eric? Oops.
I thought this was great. It's been interesting for me being having the opportunity to serve in this capacity because a lot of folks have come at me, one state rep and his wife. And I think when it comes to increased spend, there's a perception that moving towards green strategies and eliminating coal plants is what's driving up our expense. So, maybe thinking about the wording of the retirement of the coal plant and how that might be perceived could be a strategy and just a watch out.
Okay.
That,
Tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking it should say instead.
yeah, I mean, I think when people are thinking about rate hikes, some in the community are thinking that's a move towards green energy and increased regulations is driving up cost.
Okay.
So going back to coal and traditional energy strategies will keep rates lower.
Okay.
And so from this presentation, we're suggesting that some of the 85 million goes into the retiring of the coal plant. So I'm just a thought of how that reconciles with the message of those that might believe that their energy costs more from retiring the coal plant.
Okay.
No, I was just thinking, right. Instead of saying coal plant retirement, just outdated plant retirement or something similar to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Peter? Go ahead, David.
well, I was just going to say, but that is driving the cost, is that conversion from coal to gas for a less carbon intensive generation is costing money.
My thought would be to highlight that message, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like highlight the message of commitment to the climate and
Right.
to just like really put it out there that that's what you're trying to do. And if that means that you have to shut down the coal plant, that's great. But like, if you're reading that, reconciling it, I think would be strategic.
Underscore that it was what the community asked for. Okay. Yeah, Peter?
So I wanted to reference the infrastructure reliability and resiliency. And I want to congratulate CPS for the award on there's a community emergency resiliency program that's $30 million. And then 30 million was already set aside. So my question in relation to that funding and a way that we can leverage, because that's a big win, right? To show how we're investing, but we're also leveraging funding. And so where would that fall into, where's the 30 million coming from? And would we see that in the next rate increase, or we're placing the 30 million within that request, or is it already in capital improvements? But for now, use that as a positive on how we're leveraging future funding, even as we're going forward with this investment.
Yeah, it's good feedback. We actually were talking about that today at council. For context on that particular grant, it's $30 million stretched over 5 years. and it helps, we spend 30 million, they give us 30 million, the federal government. It helps pull forward some of the future investment. But I think it's great feedback to highlight we're absolutely doing things, right? Going out getting grants is a great idea because it's leveraging and putting more money to work quicker for the types of investment that we want our community to have. So thank you, Peter.
Brenda, did you have something else to add?
Just something else to add under people, because I think this is something that the average person, believes in and wants to ensure that your employees are adequately trained. But also, I wouldn't use the word succession planning. I would just make it simple and say, we want to ensure that they are trained and not just customer service associates, but your linemen, that at all levels, that they're trained adequately to ensure that if and when something happens and you have needs, they'll be able to meet the needs of the average customer.
Okay. Anaqua?
Yeah, so y'all mentioned small nuclear, geothermal was the other one.
Energy storage with specific emphasis on long-term energy storage. We're already moving forward to purchase batteries and contract for battery storage. We're looking at some longer-term storage that we think will deliver greater value at possibly a lower cost.
So I guess my feedback would be on cautioning against saying that any of this money would go to help the environment. With nuclear power, nuclear creates radioactive waste, right? And I think there's a lot of conversations happening right now on just how more small nuclear reactors can produce more waste and have potentially more harm than their conventional nuclear plants. And then also geothermal releases carbon into the atmosphere. So I would say that either of those, they're not environmentally friendly solutions. So maybe caution against, I say leaving it as is, because if you would add something like commitment to the environment, I don't think we're there. So that's just my feedback on that part.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody online want to make any comments about this slide? Yes,
I got one
Peter?
more.
Oh,
Go ahead,
okay.
Peter.
You got the mic, David, and then we'll go to Peter.
Um, I like this slide. The only thing I'm just curious why the city payment's not on here. How does that factor into the $85 million?
It's with city payment. So we can highlight that, I suppose, and call it out.
So is that backed out of each of these 26? So that's less, like 26 million less 14% is what gets invested in infrastructure? Is that how you would look at that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. City payment is a cost. It's an expense element of our P&L. So these numbers are incremental revenue. And just like we showed in that flow of funds waterfall, city payment's a piece of that, but that's going to come after the expenditures. That's going to come after our debt service coverage and after our capital payments.
But that's planned in the 85 million. So I
Yes,
guess my
sir.
point would be it needs to be highlighted. So.
Okay.
Thanks.
Peter?
I want to revisit my comments about that community emergency resiliency program. And I talked about how the leveraging, but also the benefit. I know right now there's going to be, and there is, of course, pushback on the disadvantaged communities and the impact. And I think knowing that grant is going to be targeted on the south and southwest part of San Antonio, and 60% is going to be dedicated to the disadvantaged communities for resiliency and shoring up the grid so that they get the benefit. I think that's a great way to be able to show that you have a plan in place that's going to help those communities, because I know that's what the council's looking for those insurances of how are we investing in those communities, and then how we roll it out. I think that's going to be the key. But I look forward to seeing that. But again, I just wanted to reiterate that as another point of benefit.
Okay. Slide number 6 and 7.
Sorry, I did have, I
Oh,
thought we were
sorry,
gonna-
Anaqua.
No, it's okay. On the people, so base labor increase, that's basically increasing the minimum wage for CPS employees?
Corey? Oh, or somebody?
Or I'll let Lisa answer that.
So the minimum wage for any employee is $18. It's the entry level wage, and then they go from there. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, is that what y'all are proposing in this?
That's current state
Okay.
and continuing that.
And so y'all want to keep the base pay at 18, or is any of these 21 million going to increase the base pay?
No, base pay will stay at 18. We are making some changes to some of the lower levels of organization, like in customer, we're moving base to 20. So as an example, some of the entry level jobs are starting to make an adjustment, but most jobs come in somewhere between 18 and 25 at that entry level, but the absolute minimum is 18.
Okay. And on here, it says normal increase in payroll taxes, healthcare insurance, pension costs. Any of those include bonuses?
No.
No bonuses?
There is no incentive pay at CPS Energy at this time for the organization.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the next two slides that show the bill impact on residential customers, sorry, on residential customers and commercial customers. Yes, Aaron? Hold on.
Thanks. On slide 6, I'd like to see the assumptions that went into the analysis, kind of like it's shown here, that, based on 1,000 kilowatt hour and per month, just to clarify how they came to these numbers.
You want to see the assumptions on there. Okay. Somebody else down here. Dr. Cantu?
Thank you, Ann. So I know in some slides I see that's labeled base rate increase. And so we're talking with base rate is what we're paying for the energy and gas. That's the base rate, and not all the other fees, like the adjustable fees, the other things. So those may go up as well, correct?
You will clarify that. So the three kind of buckets are base rate, fuel, and regulatory.
Okay.
And so we're not talking about regulatory. We're not talking about fuel. We're talking about base rate.
Base. So that could.
Or the city components too. Yeah. Like, I mean, we have, the trash is on our bill as well. In parks, all that other stuff. That's all dictated by the city's kind of scale. Yeah.
So the base rate would increase to 4.25%, but there may be some of those other things that would increase as well. Or
Yeah.
go down, possibly go down as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Point is, we don't control those in this instance. Yeah.
Right. And just the point of making, when you say base rate, make that clear. That's
Define
we're
what
talking
base rate is. Yeah, and that's why it's, the base rate is 4.25, but it nets out to 2.7 because some of that stuff doesn't get touched. Any other comments about these slides, about the impact of the rates on the customer? Anybody online want to share something about these slides? Anything else from the floor? Okay. What CPS Energy is doing to help offset the rate increase for city's most vulnerable citizens? The expansion of the affordable discount program. What were your thoughts and impressions about this slide? Anakwa?
Actually, I'll just hold my comments.
I'm sorry.
I'll just hold my comments. I have a recommendation that doesn't involve this slide.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. What were your thoughts about the ADP program and expanding it as part of the rate increase proposal? Yes, Dee Dee?
I actually have a handful of questions. I'm not understanding how these changes increases funding. Oh, how it will offset 50% of proposed base rate increase. That's my first question. And then I think where it says increase customer discount to $18.36 per month, I don't know if that's entirely accurate, because if you go by, like, for example, if I'm an entirely electric customer. If I needed assistance, my current discount is $11.67. But y'all are only going to increase it by like $1.81 to $13.48. I'm trying to understand how $1.81 is going to help customers. that are really struggling. These customers that have an energy burden of 10%.
I'll answer part of that and then hand it off to Deanna, but the half of it goes back to the other slide that showed 445 was the average increase. So the 222 is to reflect an approximate 50% reduction of that impact. So you as a customer may have a $4.45 increase, but if you're on this program, we're going to back that off so the impact is lessened if you're a combined electric and gas customer. That's kind of point one. And then, addressing the energy burden was just an element of an extra eligibility criteria we added on there.
Did that answer your question, Dee Dee?
Yes, to some degree, but still the discount is not going to 1836 a month for every customer. This is just.
I think maybe it's offset 50% of the proposed base rate increase.
That's exactly right.
Not 50% of the discount.
Okay, I'll get that.
If that clarifies it.
Yeah.
And if I'm right, somebody from CPS, correct me if I'm wrong.
The way this is written, it looks like there's
confusing.
more, right. It looks like there's more of a discount being given. And if I can remember correctly, I'm thinking back to the RAC and the recommendations. Some of the proposals were either one, increasing the amount of the affordability discount per month, including customers that are suffering from energy burden, and then increasing the pool of customers that would be eligible.
And we're doing all three. So I
All
think
three
that's
back
good
in all
feedback
three.
that we need to make that more clear on this slide. That's what I'm taking from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think this is a very confusing page, and as somebody who advocates for, including my colleague in the back that advocates for working class families, I'm like, you're not helping us out here. So just based on this sheet, it's very confusing.
Well, that's good feedback, Dee Dee, because we are doing those things and we do want to acknowledge them. So we appreciate that. And we'll,
I acknowledge y'all are trying to help.
yeah.
I want to acknowledge that
Yeah.
there was an attempt to address energy burden, which CPS Energy alone cannot fix, right? This is not just something CPS Energy is able to fix, but yeah.
Okay. JR?
So I had a question that.
Closer to your.
I had a question that I'm trying to figure out, and not so much for myself, but because I imagine everybody that looks at this is going to ask, how do you determine who qualifies for energy burden? And I mean, I think it should be on there, even if it's just a little bit, because you kind of look at this and be like, okay, well, I could use some help.
Absolutely. So we can list out all the qualifications. One is income, so percent at or below federal poverty limit, plus age. Thank you. KJ gave it to me here. Being 60 years of older, have a disability, using life-sustaining medical equipment, have preschool age children or school children age 18 and under, and having extenuating circumstances like energy burden, and as well as what percent you're at the federal poverty limit. And then for energy burden, it's your average amount that you pay on your bill compared to your total income. So we can clean that up to show who all can benefit from this, and that we are expanding the number of people that can be enrolled as well as the discount.
And I mean, my humble advice would be, even if it was just, some of the big three medically, and you put those up there, because you're obviously not going to go into every circumstance, but that way the people that need it the most know, and then there's an asterisk for additional.
Thank you, will do.
Dr. Cantu, did you have your hand up?
I was just wondering about, you talked about active outreach, and I know CPS has been doing a lot of work on the outreach. Do you have any data that the outreach that you're utilizing is reaching the people? I mean, do we know that people that are energy burdened in San Antonio are actually now signing up for all these discounts?
We don't have good quality data for me to talk about that. The best data that I can talk through is whenever we're doing targeted outreach and the response that we're getting. So we target customers that do have a severe energy burden for when we get Bear County dollars or ARPA dollars from the city, and we do specific outreach to those customers. We tend to have more than a 20% attendance rate to those events whenever we're targeting that. So the last event we had here, I think it was a Wednesday and Thursday night. This whole place was full. We had to turn people away because we had more than 700 people here each night. And so we're seeing the response from the total outreach. And from that event, and you have to remind, it was $3 million. We were able to connect with about 500 to 600 folks. So we are
Connecting with their bills. I mean,
yes, it was direct bill relief that that Bear County was able to identify, and we targeted our outreach to the customers.
Brenda, did you have something you wanted to add? No. Okay. Yes, Peter.
Just also wanted to acknowledge the effort to add that affordability discount. And I know we had been briefed on 3 different options at the time. And I think this one landed, Corey, I think you referenced it, but this one landed at the 65,000, that first quintile, because the other was doubling it versus increasing it, right? So this is increasing the existing group versus adding more to the group. So
It's
we're adding
both, they're
more
saying.
and we're increasing. So how much more are we adding? Because that initial proposal was double, like doubling 65 to 130,000 of the community that could participate in the program, if I'm not mistaken.
So increasing the number who could participate as well as increasing the amount that they're the discount.
Yes, just trying to understand where we landed.
Yep. So all 3 that Dee Dee mentioned we're doing. 1, increasing the discount, and you can see that on the slide, but we need to make it clearer. 2, making energy burden over 10%. So severely energy burdened customers, all severely energy burdened customers in the community would be eligible. And then 3rd, the quantity of customers. So what we have to sort of guess how many additional enrollments we'll get. We're going to do a full court press, and we will go sign up every single severely energy burdened customer in our community if we can. This accounts for about another 15,000. But if it's more than that, then we'll build in the funding, to our next ask, I guess. Right. But I mean, we will not say no.
Right, and thank you for that. And I appreciate the effort and incorporating it. And just to add my perspective on it, Rudy, thank you for your commitment to the energy burden and the most vulnerable in our community. You made that commitment early on, and throughout our time on the RAC, the 2.5 years, a number of us on the RAC really committed to that effort to see how we could have the greatest impact. And at a certain point, I'll say I conceded that these rate increases were going to come, and that the best we could do was to minimize the impact. And so this was one, but I thought this was the lesser, but it's a great effort. I thought, which I still feel strongly, is energy efficiency and that weatherization in the community. That's where you can really make the greatest impact, because it's long term and it helps them move to a place where they're not only with their energy burden, but then also the extreme weather impact that they would have. So thank you, Rudy. And I want to acknowledge this as part of that group, because we met for 2 years, and during that time, we had a number of committees. Of course, generation planning, and it's all symbiotic, right? Everything we always factored in. How's it going to impact the most vulnerable? Every committee we went through. And I had asked Rudy for a working group for the LMI STEP program. And so I want to thank you for that, because that's been very productive over the past 2 years in developing those strategies. And for those that are part of that committee, the recommendation for that next level for this outreach, and what I would recommend, that a strategic plan over the next 5 years. I don't even got to Vision 27, but over the next 5 years, that's where you have this increase of investment. I mentioned this at the last meeting. The next 5 years, you have 3, including this one, 3 increases coming. If you can incorporate a strategic plan or start a strategic plan, and even with that working group and other stakeholders, and even this group, or however, and thank you for committing to the CAC being restructured so we can continue to do this work. So I just want to plant this seed for how that work goes forward, that a strategic plan be put in place so we can maximize these efforts. And the work that's being done, Deanna, and all the partnerships, and Eric, I know you have a program that has great benefits, and I love the way you build people through the process. And that's what I'd really love to see that happen within all the efforts, because there's a lot of work going on. I think targeting it, the collaboration is great now, but I think over the next 5 years, if we really target it and we could come back and as you're going through the next two iterations of this rate increase, we can say, this is how we're addressing it in a very strategic way and have something to give back after the next rate increase to show that we've actually made an impact. So that's my recommendation. And I'm of course, looking forward to how we can make that a success here with CPS and all the partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, the community outreach plan that shows where all CPS will be going in the community. Brenda?
So Deanna, the community fairs, it doesn't say where they are at. I'd like to recommend that you go to the city senior centers. You need to go to them because they are the most vulnerable. And because I go there sometimes, I know if you just offer a slice of pizza, you get them in numbers. So I think that is where you need to be, especially because sometimes those people don't have transportation to come down here. They don't take the bus. So that's probably where you should be going.
Thank you. And when we go through the website, we'll show you, we have the exact location on there. For instance, tomorrow night will be at King of Kings Church, which is my mother's church. So, but it's going to where we can find, where we can get the space and where people will invite us. But we have a combination of senior centers as well as community centers, wherever we can get a space and get in and host people to come in. We'll be happy to do. So if there's a specific one you want to recommend, please let me know.
Okay. And then are we going to talk about this separately?
We are in just a
Okay.
minute.
All right, thank you.
Any other locations or any other places that are missing from this, Eric?
Yeah, it's just in the communication that, I mean, in some ways, it's incredibly informative. And so, Rudy, thank you for the education. I owe you tuition. But take the opportunity not just to talk about the rate increase. I think that's a miss. If you're convening people and delivering a message, make it holistic about all the things that you have. The rate increase could almost be the smallest portion. I know we're waiting to talk about this, which I have some feedback, but man, if you were talking about the utility assistance, if you're talking about weatherization, you're talking about all the things that CPS does and that we're in it together, and there is a rate increase to meet some environmental opportunities, et cetera, that's a better use of the attendees' time than just a rationalization on the spend.
Rudy, did you want to say something?
Well, number one, we can't do any of this without your partnership. So let me thank you for that. I think you're absolutely right. All of this is to achieve a vision that the community told us they wanted. Transformation of our business to be more sustainable, more resilient, more forward thinking, more customer, centric. That's what these investments pay for. So point well taken. And it can't just be our vision document. It's got to be more transformative and kind of customer centric than what we believe that to be. But to your point, all of this pays for what the community told us they wanted, and that's the real takeaway.
Miriam?
Yes, I wanted to double down on what Eric said. I completely agree about the holistic message. I think that's really important. Also had a question on this slide, just a somewhat curiosity, but also kind of getting at something. Do you have a sense of about how many people come out to the community fairs? I know you said you had like 900 at the one that was about direct support, and it was there at CPS, but are there venues that you see more people coming out or fewer people coming out, or are there days of the week, what seems to work the best for reaching people? And are you thinking about that as you're looking forward to more meetings?
Hi, Miriam. This is KJ Fetter. I just wanted to jump in really quickly there and tell you that we try to spread out our dates, times, locations as we go into all the different council districts so that we have a variety of opportunities so that we can get a lot of people participating. We have the most success in places of worship, so we tend to go to churches a lot. But we also realize that there are people that may not want to go to a church, so we try to have a variety of opportunities as well. And sometimes we just put our bus up in a parking lot and sit out there and answer questions and invite people to come visit us in our bus. So we try to be really flexible and make sure that we're giving every customer the opportunity to visit with us.
Yep, but Miriam, what I'll say on top of that is, we have so many people out in the community every single day that we know where folks congregate, and we have evolved over time to create events that maybe some days they only get 25 folks show up, but other days they might get 200. Depending upon who the partner is, quite frankly. So we have utilized our success in this space to give us the best chance of getting folks to show up. Then it just becomes about the day. Today kind of cold, so maybe the seniors don't show up, today like they would other days. So those are dynamics we can't control, but we prepare for.
Dr.
Block
Cantu?
walking is another really big part of that.
I appreciate all that. Thank you.
One other comment about the outreach too, and you may have already done this, and speaking in year one, there are a lot of community influencers. There's so many influencers out there in the community, those natural leaders, and many community-based organizations have community health workers, the promotores. And I don't know if you've made the connections with them as well, but that's another avenue for outreach, because they go into the community, they're in the homes, so that's another option.
Yes, Anaqua?
Yeah, if you
Thank you.
haven't already, I would recommend Traders Village, any open air flea market. They have thousands of people. I think maybe even doing the town halls in a smaller format as folks are shopping at some of these big flea markets, I think would probably be really beneficial to a group of audience who probably would not come out.
That's a good point. Okay.
I was just going to say, we have done Traders Village, but we will try it again, and we can get some good elote there too. So.
Okay, now what everybody's been waiting for, the one-page flyer. I'm gonna, just so we have it on the record, we'll talk about the top third of the sheet first, protecting our community's investments. Why does CPS Energy need to raise rates? We need to make continued investments to meet the objectives of our Vision 2027 strategic plan. Then under infrastructure resiliency, it says aging infrastructure needs to be upgraded to limit the impact of outages. Inflation is also increasing the cost of existing materials like poles, power lines, and transformers. Under growth, it says the population of San Antonio and its surrounding counties is expected to increase by 30% by 2023. With growth comes additional investments to maintain and improve reliability. Technology and security, our core business operating system is 20 years old and must be fully replaced. Similarly, we need to invest in security systems for on-site safety and cybersecurity. And under people, we are preparing for 30% of our team members to retire over the next 5 years. Another 30% of our team have less than 2 years in the role, so we need to invest in succession planning. And then a call, learn more about the work we need to do to serve our community with a URL. So what is your reaction to that top third of the sales sheet? Yes, Eric?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think this is an opportunity rather than kind of protecting our community's investments to be more about a shared responsibility that we are in it together. And so where is the ratepayers' opportunity? To me, the four buckets are less relevant than maybe conservation and weatherization, and really encouraging the ratepayer to understand what they could be doing, because they're interested in lowering their rates, right? So anything that can highlight activities they could be doing in this shared responsibility of reliable and efficient and environmentally safe power, I think highlight that. And I think the rates compared to other cities is phenomenal. So the I missed the last meeting and so I was trying to catch up with notes, but the business rates are lower than residential rates. Is that correct?
It's a whole,
So I mean, again, it comes down to cost of service and how customers use power and, you know, how that drives our costs. So when you're more consistent with your usage, that lowers, you know, our cost to serve you. So, you know, so it really has to do with, you know, how they use our system and how consistently they use our system than the fact that they pay lower rates. They're paying their cost to serve. They're paying our cost to serve them based on how they're using our system. Residential is much more up and down. Commercial is a lot flatter. If that makes sense.
It does in the sense of the spectrum of residents. You probably got residents on a spectrum and then businesses on a spectrum, but as a in that spectrum of business, is it less per kilowatt hour that they would pay in contrast to a consumer, or is it? I get the efficiencies, but is it priced that way?
I mean, as Rudy said, it really is priced around how they use the infrastructure. But when you look at the per unit, that's what folks typically hang on to. But I think the biggest stat I think it's helpful is they're less than 10% of our customers, but over 50% of our revenue. So their per unit can look like it is less, but as Rudy said, I mean, it's based on the types, the cost to serve their their load. I'm not sure if that's helping your answer there.
and if I may, again, if I get this right, yes, they pay a less rate in terms of cost per kilowatt hour, but they pay more than their fair share of the cost to serve them.
Yeah, and they don't just pay a per unit rate. I mean, part what's missed is they have a demand charge as an example. Residential customers don't have a demand charge. So they have a different structure altogether. And the only way to kind of benchmark it is by bringing it back to something that we can all compare it to. But they're not just paying a straight per unit. They've got different structures that makes it very difficult to kind of do one for one in that area. And so
Somebody in the response to the survey from the last meeting gave an analogy here about to help explain this cost differential about buying something at a Costco, sort of a wholesale buy where I buy the big, let's see, pardon? Yeah, the big roll of, the 20 package of paper towels versus I buy 2. And the cost per, how that translates to the cost per roll of paper towel, and thought that was an analogy that just the general public would
Yeah,
understand.
that was my analogy.
Okay,
But
yeah.
Eric, you would see the same thing at the food bank.
Yeah.
I mean, you buy in bulk and you get a better price than if you were to buy individual units. And you would expect your supplier to give you a discount if you bought a truckload of stuff versus going to H-E-B and buying, 6 cans of vegetables,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same,
And I
in my mind,
track,
it's the same kind of thing. You're
I
buying
track
in bulk,
that.
it costs less transportation, marketing, all those things to serve a industrial customer than it does a residential customer.
Yeah, and I think for large consumers, just the spectrum of businesses as a whole, there might be businesses that are smaller and is their rate as low as maybe a larger business. Some of those base rates, I spend a lot on energy as a business. I hope I get a great rate on that, but it's connecting the dots to the 220. So at a residence level, if you're getting $220 as a discount program, does a business get a larger discount than the 220 based on the rate that they pay? As a city, we've got commitments. Adrian's trying to get folks to a wage that allows them to sustain themselves. And maybe that's a criteria that you extend highly competitive rates to businesses that pay a wage of $15, $16 an hour or higher. But it seems like they're double dipping. If you get a super low business rate and then you're paying low wages to employees that then are on the backside getting a subsidy, maybe as a community, we work really strategic to try to take care of our residents.
Yeah, in theory, Eric, I think that'd be great. In practice, that's the kind of stuff that get us called up to the PUC, for discriminatory, rate making that is just kind of outside the bounds of, kind of how utility rates are viewed. When the regulatory is such that, the goal is, to charge customer a rate that's reflective of their burden on the, on the system. Once you start getting into those other policy areas, that's why we have like E16. You might, get a discount that the city decides to give you, not CPS Energy, because you agree to certain conditions that bring jobs to San Antonio. So we do have a way to incentivize that type of economic activity, but it's outside the context of truly just giving somebody a discount because they're doing the things we want them to do. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So just to summarize what Eric's input, make sure I understood correctly, you're wanting it to say, here's what CPS Energy is doing to keep rates as affordable as we can and to ensure resiliency and reliability, and here's what you could do, and here's how we're partnering with you to help you also control your energy demand and rates, not rates, but energy usage.
Just a
Shared responsibility.
shared responsibilities for, and not, why does CPS need to raise your rates? I mean, that, to me, it's just like what we could all be doing to save, and the rate increases, as a result is the direction that we're going as a community to have better power and more reliable power. But they could be having their rates increased, but actually saving on their energy bill if they were invoking some of the programs that CPS has.
Okay, thank you.
I have a thought. So I track what Rudy's saying about PUC, and then at the same time, ERCOT during the peak of the call for conservation paid a Bitcoin company $30 million to power down. And so for the community, and tracking back to what Eric's saying, how do we rationalize that, grapple that when you're telling us that because of the PUC and regulations that we cannot change rate structures, but ERCOT can pay a big corporation $30 million to power down, and I don't think they'd pay us any money to power down, or have they?
Well, so, they, in that instance, that company is going completely off system, right? And getting paid for that demand reduction. And you have refineries do that. They got customers all over the state of Texas that when you get into an energy emergency, ERCOT hits a button and off those companies go. They shut down their operations or switch to backup generation, and that creates capacity, capacity. So they're getting paid like a generator because of the scale. And in an emergency, people ask me my opinion of that. Good for them. If it means that I kept my customers' lights on, then that is the objective, at the end of the day. So I think the state is actually looking to create the similar systems for residential customers here. We give out free, Wi-Fi thermostats, so that when we send customers a signal, they allow us to kick up their ACs a couple of degrees, and we get significant response for those customers who have access to Wi-Fi. I know that's where you're going to go, that maybe some of our lower income customers don't benefit from that, but there is a similar program that has a benefit. It's just not a direct payment the way the commercial customers, get access to.
I guess I want to ask too, in the the vein of keeping the lights on, PUC governs disconnection policy at CPS, or what is and who governs and controls the disconnection policy at CPS?
So we're all governed, the power we sell back onto the market, our ability to hit our energy, to call our energy efficiency resources and utilize that to serve, our area. We're governed by all the same rules that in the ERCOT market and any other area is. The PUC from a rate setting perspective only gets, they set our transmission rates, which we're going to go in next year for a full-blown transmission case, different issue. But if our customers outside the city limits don't like what we've done, they have the ability to appeal our rates to the PUC, at which point we would have to go in for a full-blown rate case. Now, let me tell you what that means, because there are unintended consequences that we don't ever get talked about that I think are important. What we are seeing at the PUC on the transmission side of the business, we have a 14% general fund transfer to the city of San Antonio. They're limiting other cities to 5%. If San Antonio gets limited to 5%, that's hundreds of millions of dollars that, we won't have access to. So there is a mechanism for our rates to be appealed to the Public Utility Commission, whereas we would get, kind of thrown into a full-blown, rate case, which is why we pay attention to, kind of fairness in the way our rates are structured, so that people are paying kind of their fair share. Does that make sense? And was that your question, Anako?
I guess my question is, in terms of lessening the impact, we have a disconnection policy at CPS with rate increases and acknowledging that people who are already behind are going to possibly be more behind. Is there any leeway to make the disconnection policy more humane? Maybe, I understand that y'all saying we cannot halt disconnections, we can't stop disconnections. What about extending the time? Y'all, I think after 34 to 40 some days, someone may go into disconnection. Can that be adjusted to maybe 3 months?
We are more lenient on our disconnection policy than most utilities are. And I get pressure on both sides. My board wants me, in some cases to be stricter in my disconnection policies. I've got folks who don't want me to disconnect at all. So, our approach is to try to get customers to engage us, to get them on a plan that works for them, so we don't ever get there. But again, for customers who just won't pay and won't seek assistance or whatever it drives them, the only way to get them to react is a disconnect. So I think the reality of our situation is somewhere in the middle. We got to hold people accountable, but we also have to do everything we can to reach them to try to get them the help that they need. And I think that's where we are right now.
I've got about 20 minutes left, and I want to get to the rest of the information on this sheet.
One final thought. I'm just thinking of, forward creative ways to lessen the impact. And I think one that I think affects a lot of community members I see, especially renters or people who get their power disconnected or move and then incur fees and have balances left over. I think there's a deposit fee that y'all have that ranges between, I think involves the square footage of a home where someone is reconnecting their power. And I think it's between $34 deposit up to $600 deposit. And I wonder if there's any motivation for y'all to reanalyze that. Just thinking in terms of like the low income people that have balances that carry over, for whatever reason, they move somewhere where power is included, or maybe a relative connects power, they may move, and then this family has to reconnect their power. This is an example of bills I've seen. Someone has a $250 balance with CPS. Obviously, that's going to stay until they pay it. They reconnect their power. Then they get a $300 deposit that they have to pay. And then their first month bill is, around $700, $800. And then, of course, it gets sectioned off into months in the payment plan. But just in thinking of this, I think it's an inhumane practice to to have a deposit for someone that most likely may not pay on time. And I think having leeway on paying on time, I think people pay late and they shouldn't suffer consequences of losing those $300. That's food for a whole family for a week maybe. And so who sets that? And is there a way that y'all can look at that and say, you know, we are collecting X amount of deposit, how much of that deposit goes back to the family and gets credited, and how much is CPS just absorbing? And I'm curious to know if there's more people that don't get their deposit back, then is that a moment for us to think more humanely and wonder and think how can we affect without incurring funds? Because I don't think that the deposit has much to do on how you're allocating money, and correct me if I'm wrong on some of these pieces, but I would love to see some creative, more humane practices around, especially low-income people right now. I think only people who can get around the deposit are active military members. And so thinking of people with large families, thinking of low-income people, thinking of disabled people, if there's any way to extend that grace to them as well. And I would love to hear back from that. about that.
Sure, Anaka. So for our deposits, that's part of our terms and conditions, and we can review that on the standard schedule that we review our terms and conditions. What I will say about deposits is that actually sits on someone's account, that if it's not waived. So in the event that whenever that person moves away or that account closes, it either gets applied as a credit within 12 months of good pay history. If not, it sits on the account, so it helps manage the amount of what's that bad debt that ends up getting written off down the road. So we're just trying to balance those two things. CPS doesn't absorb those costs; they just sit on the account for 12 months or until that account's closed, and then it'll be applied as a credit. But we'll review our T's and C's, our terms and conditions, and see what we can do.
Okay. Aaron?
Yeah, thanks. You hear me? I can't tell if
Yeah,
it's working.
talk a little bit louder.
All right. So I want to echo a couple comments about the importance of the efficiency and conservation programs, and those aren't.
Yeah.
Thanks. I want to echo the comments that have been made about the benefits of the efficiency and conservation programs, which aren't mentioned on here. I think there's a lot of value in mentioning those and having a link to where people can learn more about them. Because yeah, if you're throwing money at helping people pay bills who are having a hard time, but you're not really getting to the root cause of the problem, which is an inefficient house, let's say. And so everybody benefits if you can make the house more efficient. And so, and you have a couple of links here to the rate request, but you could perhaps replace one of those with a link to find out more information about those programs, which I think are really worth highlighting. They're really valuable and important.
So maybe in the section where it says, what is CPS Energy doing to help its customers, add some of those things that you just talked about.
Hey, Mary, real quick too, I wanted to just add, it's Melissa, I'm over here, Mary.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, everybody. Again, thanks for all the feedback I heard both of yours. Once we have the bill calculator information on there, it does have a complete listing of some of the resources that we have for energy efficiency. So we'll continue to stress that throughout this.
Okay. Yes, thank you for your patience.
It's okay. Yeah, actually, I was going to make similar suggestion, but I also was going to highlight a pilot partnership that we have with CPS through Workforce Solutions Alamo, and that is for people who are in the arrears, they send them to us to be able to not only help them out with utility assistance, but also to get them on a track to get trained, to get skill set, get jobs. And that's really sort of focusing on sort of kind of the core issue, right? Like what's the fundamental issue that's getting them in the rears, right? It is a pilot, but I do want to give credit to CPS, to Rudy and Deanna and others for working closely with us on that, because that does demonstrate a really sort of innovative approach to addressing some of the same issues. It doesn't resolve all of the issues in terms of low-income families, but it does, at least offer another resource, which I would suggest, somehow either a QR code or something to that effect said, if you're looking for a new job or something to that effect to help offset these things, send them to us.
Brenda had
that?
mentioned,
Yeah, what? Yes, yes. But I mean, we can help out other folks as well.
Brenda had mentioned at the top when we were discussing this slide that she thought some of the bullets from here belonged down here. And in particular, I'm trying to remember back what it was. Up here, hold on. There you go.
I mentioned it already, like the 20-year-old system, I think is
That's
important. That's easy to understand. People won't be able to understand that. Like, you know what, if it's 20 years old, yes, by all means, please, we need some
Yes.
updating, because not just for you and not just for the employees, but for us, so that we can be safe too with, you know, our information.
Right.
Yeah, terms like that, I think that are easy to understand. I said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think that the chart with regard to how much Austin and El Paso does anything for me or anybody that I know, because we really don't care how much they pay. But what Mr. Eddington mentioned about, let's highlight how long it's been and how few rate increases have been over the last few years, I think might be impactful to folks, because then they can put it in context like, okay, well, we see, you know, we don't, it's tough. It's gonna be tough for all of us, okay? But it's necessary now. It's
Okay.
necessary. That's all I'm saying. And I think, Rudy, I mean, I don't know how deep your employees go into conversations when they do go back to the door to door knocking, but we're talking about two different kinds of customers here in my mind. You're talking about the ones that maybe have had just a crisis in their family, and in, you know, 4 to 6 months they're going to be better off, and then they're going to be able to recover. And you know, the plans that you know, they put us, because I've been on the plan too sometimes, you know, where you can pay over several months and you catch up. And then there's those that are never going to be able to, because they're always going to be in a situation where they make minimum wage, and things happen in their life, and they're just, you know, always going to be behind on their bill. So we're talking about two different, in my mind, of customers who have different needs. So as you mentioned, you know, those folks that it seems like they try and they just need a little more help. So I think for most folks, it's almost like, because I was on the RAC committee for a little while, and I heard the voices of those who said, well, too bad, you know, tough, you know, they got themselves into this mess and now they just have to figure it out. Well, we know better than that. So I just think maybe looking at it a little more in a different lens might help too, Rudy, because we're different.
Peter?
Yes, so I wanted to just reiterate what Aaron said about the weatherization, the STEP program being highlighted, the 30,000 homes as wins. And also, Adrian, thanks for sharing that, because those are the kind of things that we don't know that are happening in the background that Deanna and the whole team have been incorporating. So I know there's an ecosystem already there that we can keep building on. And Rudy, on the explanation, thanks for sharing that as well, because that is part of that legal issue that we do face if we go beyond that point of benefits. So having these other options available to us, and of course being compassionate, but I think I believe you've gone above and beyond and continue to do that. One other component I would ask to consider when we go into these communities, you talked about the demand response, right? And I know we talked about that in the STEP program, but what about if there's a benefit to, if we can run a pilot for a time of use, so we can run it over this duration here and see if they would benefit from it, a low to moderate income community, and then see if that could come out on the backside where they benefited. Then when we roll out the next iteration, we already have a benefit within that community.
Let me make sure I understand, because I think it's an interesting idea, Peter. So what you're saying is to actually, you know, because we could go out and put a meter on a house and, you know, start to gather that data based on their usage to see how a time of use rate might apply, you know, while we're upgrading our technology to get the billing, you know, capabilities to be able to do that, to, you know, to do it in, because right now we can do it in a general sense. The real way to do it is to do it in intervals, where you're pricing the intervals, you know, in a way that really, you know, get customers, you know, focused in on when they're doing their stuff. So it's not the idea of creating a rate to do it. It's the idea of starting to gather data that says, here are some examples of a customer who would have benefited that we can put on a rate like that once we get there. Is that what you're
Yes,
what you're
yes,
saying?
exactly. And it builds it cultivates that personal responsibility also in the community. So, yeah,
Dr.
thank you.
Cantu?
Yes, and my comments are on this flyer or so the goal is to have this flyer go to the community members, leave it with them. So Adrian, I was going to say QR code as well. So thank you for saying that. I think it does need a QR code. The print is very small. So, and we've got various, we got a large rate of diabetes and a lot of diabetic retinopathy. So, and in the middle where the orange and the white, that can be very hurtful to the eye in the middle there. I agree with Brenda about this graph. And I don't know if that gives you more room on it. I don't know if it really tells people much. I was like, wow, we're doing a good job. Why do you want to increase it now? So I don't know if it really tells us that much, but also printing is small, and I think having things in bullet form are much more impactful and not as much verbiage. And then we also have to pay attention to San Antonio, just in the city, and what the average reading level is in San Antonio. And so I think in that respect, to go back and look at how the flyer would be read. I'm thinking like this, a lot of people just toss this in the trash can.
All right. Any other, looking at what CPS Energy is doing to help its customers? And we talked about the expansion of the ADP program. Oh, yes. Let me just finish this thought and then I'll go to you. We talked about expansion of the ADP program in the presentation. Do you want to see that outlined here? Is that important to say? Here's what this is sort of backward looking in my mind. This is what we've done, but this is how we're planning to expand it. Would that be important information on here or no? Who thinks the expansion of the program should be mentioned? Raise your hand.
I think just highlighting, again, you're asking ratepayers to increase their investment in you. And what are you doing with that increased investment? And it supports all of those things like ADP. So, and one last thought was just if Vision 2027, if you're foreseeing another rate increase, trying to get that out in front. I mean, if that's going to happen, it seems like that's where trust, if you never know, hey, we just gave you more money, what'd you do with that? And so strategically managing your increases in a way that they're aware. So if you are going to increase in a couple more years, maybe that is something that you would want to put on that flyer.
Dee Dee?
I think what would be helpful for people to know to prepare also is some type of timeline, like when is this going to happen, that this actual rate increase going to happen? And bottom line, people want to know how much this is going to be. And you'll have 4.25 real tiny there in the middle of the page. So let's just be upfront with customers that this is going to happen when, like, when is this happening? When is it going to be voted on? When is it going to hit your bills?
That's a good point. Thank you. Any other feedback on this in terms of information that you think is important or information that's on it? Like some of you have said about the comparison of the rates that you think isn't need to be there. David?
I think this just reiterates some earlier comments, but like where it says, why does CPS need to raise rates? And then the line below that, we need to make continued investments to meet the objectives of our Vision 2027. I don't think ratepayers care about your Vision 2027. I mean, that's like, you need to say what you're going to do with that. It needs to be why does it benefit the community? So.
How's it going to be distributed?
It'll be in an envelope for those who prefer paper mail. It'll come email, and so it's just a PDF.
We were going to, yes, Anaqua?
The Spanish language translation, I think, can be maybe written a little bit better. For instance, over here we have infrastructure and resiliency, and over here it's a resistencia, which means resistance, and it should be resiliencia. I'm not the best, okay, but definitely I pick out, and then also del mismo modo necesitamos invertir en el sistema de seguridad para seguridad. There's maybe picking other words, it's like small tweaks, and also maybe something that's more colloquial to like the Spanish that's spoken in San Antonio as opposed to like super formal. I think there's a fine line that I think that can be achieved on this.
Okay, thank you. We were gonna go over the website, but we're out of time, and I'm gonna ask you as homework, if you're willing, to look at it. It contains much of the same information contained on this one pager, but there's also facts that have a series of questions that CPS has drafted answers to. There's, the locations of all the community events and where you can find out more. There's a lot of information about some of the programs that they have, like REAP and, to help and bill assistance and all of that kind of stuff. So we're in the survey, we'll add a question about the website, and just to give us some feedback about that. If you'll spend, 5 or 10 minutes just looking at it afterwards, that would be really helpful. Anything else anybody wants to add before we close? Okay, so look in your inbox for a survey Friday morning, and we really appreciate you all coming and sharing your thoughts, and I think it's very helpful to the CPS team. Thank you so much.
Hey, this is Wayne.
Oh, yes,
Hello.
Wayne.
Just real quick, as y'all know, I'm traveling. I'm over in Singapore right now. So if I don't get back on the survey, please don't hold it against me. I'm limited to when I have Wi-Fi and other stuff. So
Okay.
anyway, thank you very much.
We appreciate that. Heads up, Wayne. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
In the survey, you'll include the link to the website, I guess? Yeah, okay.